Have you ever wondered why peace feels so unfamiliar, so distant, so unattainable, even when the noise around you fades? Why silence makes your chest tighten instead of loosening its grip? Why, when you finally have the space to rest, your mind begins to scream louder than ever? It's not the chaos that's unbearable, it's the absence of it. Because beneath the surface of your search for peace lies a darker truth, one you've carried like a second skin. You don't crave serenity, you crave the wounds you've learned to call home. And until you confront that truth, no amount of meditation, success, or forced gratitude will ever quiet the storm you keep disguised as stillness. Somewhere between your perfectly filtered photos and your polite "I'm fine" at Monday's meeting, a deeper war is unfolding, one that no one sees but everyone feels. You perform your roles with surgical precision, the competent employee, the thoughtful partner, the resilient friend. But at night, when the performance ends and the applause stops echoing inside your mind, there's only that aching silence. And that silence is not peace. It is a void shaped like your earliest wounds: rejection, shame, invisibility. The ghosts you never buried, only dressed in ambition. So you scroll, you plan, you overcommit. Not because you want more, but because stillness feels like death. We are creatures of repetition, not because we're foolish, but because the soul returns to what it knows. That's the secret you were never told. If your nervous system was wired in conflict, neglect, or tension, then calmness feels like a threat. You say you want love, but you sabotage intimacy. You say you want rest, but you find yourself restless. You say you want peace, but chase problems like a dog chasing a familiar scent. And in every room where things feel too calm, too kind, too real, you start to itch, as if your bones remember something your mind refuses to admit. The pain you grew up with is the only language you truly speak. But what if this isn't just a pattern? What if it's a spell? One cast by your younger self, still holding the emotional blueprint of a past you never dared rewrite. What if your drive, your success, your hunger to be better, to do more, to finally prove your worth, is not strength, but a symptom? A symptom of a wound so deep it became sacred. Because if you healed, who would you be without the ache? Who are you when you're not trying to earn love, to justify your presence, to be needed? Without your pain, what's left of your identity? That is not a rhetorical question. That is the threshold of your entire becoming. So don't look away now, don't scroll. Don't distract yourself with another motivational quote or productivity hack. Because what you're about to discover isn't an answer. It's a confrontation. With the parts of you that look like strength but were born from survival. With the masks that smile while your eyes scream. With the rituals of pain you call routine. This isn't about becoming calm. It's about remembering why you resist. And the only way to break the spell is to follow the echo back to where it began. Stay, because in the silence between these words, your shadow is listening. There is a silence that doesn't soothe, it suffocates. A stillness that doesn't heal, it exposes. You know that silence, the one that creeps in when the noise stops, when the distractions sleep, when the tasks run dry and there's no one left to impress. That's when it comes. The quiet that doesn't feel like rest but like abandonment. And in that moment, when everything finally slows down, you don't feel peace. You feel panic. Not the panic of danger, but the panic of unfamiliar safety. Because your nervous system isn't built around serenity. It was sculpted in chaos, in vigilance, in the subtle art of survival beneath smiling masks and perfectly ironed routines. You call it ambition. You call it independence. But your body calls it memory. Not of what you wanted, but of what you endured. And that memory breathes through your blood like a ghost you refuse to name. You sit in meetings and your mind wanders, not forward, but back. Back to that voice that taught you love is earned. Back to that look that said being too emotional was weakness. Back to that cold space between two people who should have cared but never knew how. You became excellent at reading the room, predicting rejection before it arrived. And you built your life on that map. Not because it led to joy, but because it kept you alive. Now every peaceful moment feels like foreign territory. Every safe relationship, every kind word, every generous act awakens the alarm system. You forgot was running. So you sabotage softness, you chase stress, you glorify exhaustion, not because you love it, but because you understand it, because chaos at least makes sense. But tenderness, that feels dangerous. That feels like standing naked in the middle of a battlefield, expecting not to bleed. You say you're tired, but what you mean is you're haunted. Haunted by the version of you that only knew love in fragments, who was praised for being low maintenance, strong, unbothered, who never cried too loudly, never asked for too much, who learned that invisibility was safer than disappointment. And now? That child lives in your bones, grown-up body, child logic. You push people away before they can get close enough to leave. You overperform so no one can accuse you of not being enough. You stay busy, so you never have to feel the weight of your own unmet needs. And every time peace knocks at your door, it's not welcome. It's interrogated. Who sent you? What do you want? How long are you staying? Because deep down you're convinced it's a trick. That calm is just a prelude to collapse. That good things come with hidden debts. That silence always means something's about to break. But what if the thing that needs to break is not out there? What if the collapse you're avoiding is actually the moment of healing you've spent your life postponing? Jung called it the return to the self, the terrifying, liberating process of remembering who you were before the pain shaped you, before you wore performance as protection, before you confused love with tension, before your worth became synonymous with usefulness. You see, the wound doesn't just hurt and it orients, it becomes the compass by which you navigate everything. You don't trust peace, not because it's wrong, but because it doesn't match the emotional blueprint that raised you. You're not allergic to calm, you're exiled from it. And the greatest tragedy is this: the door has always been open. But the child within you still waits for permission to walk through, still waits for someone to say, "You don't have to earn this." There's a strange comfort in pain that we don't talk about, not because we don't feel it, but because we feel it too much. It's the comfort of knowing what comes next, the comfort of familiar scripts, even if they cut. It's why you stay in relationships that drain you, why you pick friends who mirror your earliest betrayals, why you accept jobs that celebrate your silence but punish your truth. You call it fate, you call it bad luck, but Jung called it the compulsion to repeat, a sacred dysfunction. The mind, tethered to memory, seeks to recreate the original wound, not to suffer again, but to finally master what once felt uncontrollable. You re-enter the fire not because you enjoy burning, but because you hope that maybe this time you won't. That maybe this time you'll be seen, that maybe this time you'll win the love you were once denied, but from the same pattern, the same face, the same emotional script. But the pattern doesn't change until the witness within you wakes up. And that witness has been whispering for years, beneath the noise, behind the perfection, underneath the applause you never really hear. It speaks in the fatigue that doesn't go away after sleep, in the anxiety that lives in your gut even on quiet mornings, in the tears that rise when nothing is wrong, but everything is unresolved. That voice doesn't scream, it aches, it doesn't demand, it remembers. And the memory it carries is not just of what happened, but of what you needed and never received. Attention, safety, permission to feel, the right to fail and still be worthy of love. These absences are not just emotional gaps, they are spiritual fractures. And every time you chase performance over presence, every time you silence your need to belong just to fit in, you're not being strong. You're reenacting the original abandonment, not because you want to, but because that's the only ending your psyche has ever known. But let's be honest, you've suspected this. In quiet moments, in the echo after a success that didn't feel like triumph, in the loneliness that follows being praised for your independence, you've felt the gap. That strange hollowness between what they see and who you are. You've laughed at your own pain before they could take it seriously. You've made yourself useful so they would never leave. You've worn competence like armor and shiny, impressive and utterly isolating. And the worst part, it worked. They admired you, they leaned on you, they even envied you. But no one touched the real you. Because that version, the raw, unscripted, vulnerable you kept them hidden. Not out of vanity, but out of grief. Because every time you dared to show softness, someone turned away. Or worse, they pretended not to notice. And so you learned, the less you feel, the safer you are. But numbness is not peace. It's a form of internal exile, a self-imposed banishment from the very experiences you long for. Love, connection, ease, all of them require risk. All of them demand presence. And presence, true, embodied, vulnerable. Presence requires one thing, the death of the old story. The story that says you're only lovable if, the story that says don't be too much, the story that tells you to hide the trembling parts, to explain your tears, to outgrow your softness before someone uses it against you. But those stories are not truths. They are survival spells, cast in childhood, reinforced by culture, and kept alive by your refusal to grieve what you never got, because grief is the only bridge between the past that shaped you and the future that might finally set you free. You've spent a lifetime building a self that could survive. But now it's time to ask, can that self truly live? Not function, not perform, not impress, but live, without the script, without the posture, without the calculated smile that hides the trembling in your chest. The truth is, you've mastered the art of being seen without being known. You wear your competence like a fortress, your independence like a crown forged in fire. But inside, there's a child sitting in a locked room, waiting for someone to knock and say, I see you, not what you do, but who you are. You think, you've hidden that child well, but your choices, your attractions, your addictions, your patterns, they all speak her name. And every time you chase another goal, another lover, another version of better, it's her hand you're holding. Not because she wants more, but because she still believes love is something to be earned. That's the seduction of the persona, the mask that becomes the face. Jung warned us, the more we identify with the mask, the more we forget the self. And so we confuse applause with acceptance. We confuse being needed with being loved. We confuse productivity with worth. And then we wonder why peace feels like punishment, because peace demands presence, and presence demands authenticity, and authenticity demands grief, not performative. Grief, but raw, cellular, ancient grief, the kind that strips you of all excuses and leaves you trembling in the arms of your own unspoken truth. It's terrifying, it feels like death, but it's the only way to be reborn, not as a version of who you think you should be, but as the truth you've buried beneath layers of performance, protection, and pride. But don't romanticize the journey. It is not gentle. The path back to the self is not paved with certainty or clarity. It is marked by confusion, regression, rupture. You will doubt everything. You will want to turn back. You will ache for the numbness you once cursed, because the moment you stop performing, the silence returns, not as absence, but as mirror. And in that mirror, you will see all the faces you once wore, all the masks you had to craft just to survive. You'll see the manipulations you called charm, the anxiety you called drive, the fear you called ambition, and most painful of all, you will see how long you abandoned yourself to stay connected to others. That's the wound that splits the soul. The moment you realize that peace was never out there, it was inside, suffocated by the very strategies you used to feel safe. Still something deeper stirs. A flicker, a pull, a voice that doesn't shout, but insists. It doesn't promise reward. It promises truth. And truth doesn't come wrapped in comfort. It comes in pieces, in fragments, in unexpected tears while washing the dishes, in the sudden stillness between two thoughts, in the way your body exhales when someone finally holds you without expectation. These are not signs of weakness. They are ruptures in the old spell, portals, cracks through which the light of the self can finally return. And when it does, not all at once, but gradually, like a dawn you didn't think would come, you begin to feel something strange, not happiness, not even relief, but familiarity, as if for the first time you are not performing peace, you are remembering it. You were never broken. You were divided, torn between the self you show and the self that watches, the one who pleases and the one who aches, the one who says yes with a smile and the one who screams no in silence. And perhaps the greatest illusion of all is that healing requires killing off one of them, Jung didn't seek to eliminate the shadow, he sought to integrate it, because the shadow is not your enemy, it is your history. It is the version of you that survived when no one came. It learned how to disappear, how to adapt, how to anticipate pain so precisely it became invisible in a room. And now, when you finally feel safe enough to slow down, it doesn't know what to do, so it panics, it resists. It makes you scroll, it makes you lash out, it makes you sabotage joy, because joy was never safe before. And until you stop blaming yourself for that reflex and start listening to the part of you that created it, you'll remain trapped in a cycle that isn't yours to carry anymore. Listen, not with logic, not with judgment. Listen like your life depends on it, because it does. Not the life you perform, but the one that breathes underneath. The shadow has been writing letters to you for years, in the insomnia that won't leave, in the migraines, in the panic attacks you explain away as stress, in the dull ache that shows up every time you're alone for too long. These aren't glitches, they're messages. From the self to the self. A cry from the parts of you you've buried under titles, aesthetics, and emotional detachment. And if you finally sit long enough, if you dare to feel without fixing, you'll hear it. The grief. Not just of what happened to you, but of what you had to become in order to survive it. And that grief will not kill you, it will reveal you. But revelation isn't loud, it's devastatingly quiet. It sneaks in through ordinary moments. The way your hand trembles when someone holds it too long. The way your breath catches when someone says, "I'm proud of you," and you don't know how to receive it. The way a compliment feels like a trick and peace feels like a setup. That's not dysfunction, and that's memory. Embodied memory, cellular memory. The nervous system remembering what the mind forgot. And when those memories rise, you don't need more strength. You need permission. Permission to not be okay. Permission to unravel. Permission to be held. You've been the strong one for so long that you forgot softness is not weakness. It's medicine. But only if you stop treating it like poison. This is the threshold. The moment before the transformation takes shape. You can't rush it. You can't force it. You can't hack it into a productivity system. This is the part of the journey that doesn't post well on social media. It's not pretty, it's not linear, it's not inspiring in a traditional sense, but it's sacred. Because here, in this quiet dismantling, you begin to unlearn the belief that you are too much. You begin to question the voice that says your needs are a burden. You begin to see the pain not as a flaw, but as evidence that you still feel. And to feel is the first step to freedom. You're not failing for breaking down, you're awakening. And awakening is messy, it's tender, it's holy, it's real. And if you've come this far, it means you're ready. Not to be perfect, but to be whole. Perhaps what you feared wasn't peace itself, but what it would strip away. The masks, the pace, the practiced strength. Because when the noise fades, so do the illusions. And what remains is not weakness but weight, the sacred kind. The kind that presses gently on the soul until it remembers how to feel again. All along, you weren't searching for calm. You were searching for permission, to be soft, to slow down, to want something that doesn't hurt. And now, after walking through echoes of pain disguised as purpose, you stand here, not as someone who won the war, but as someone who dared to stop fighting a battle that was never theirs to begin with. There is a kind of knowing that doesn't speak in conclusions. It breathes in symbols. In the tremor before sleep, in the silence after a truth is spoken aloud, in the ache that no longer demands a solution. You've felt it in this journey, the pull beneath the performance, the light that flickered in the darkness, the shadow. That wasn't a threat, but a mirror. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't the end of a story, but the beginning of an inner dialogue that no longer runs from itself. You are not here to be perfect. You are here to remember that what you called dysfunction was often devotion, that the pain you repeated was once a gesture of love, that peace, in its truest form, does not erase the past. It embraces it, whispers to it, and says, "Even this belongs." So if something moved in you, even slightly, let it move further. Let it live. Speak it in the comments below. Write what you never had the courage to say aloud. Share this video not for views, but because someone out there is still chasing familiar pain, calling it destiny. Subscribe if your heart tells you this isn't just a channel, it's a return, a remembering, a revolt against numbness. And if you feel that last sentence vibrating inside your chest, then hear this one, carved in the silence of your soul. You were never lost, only waiting for someone to come looking in the dark, with a light you forgot was yours. Shall we walk further? Together.